Hey guys, it's a little dark in here because the rain's coming, so I'm gonna try and get this out as quickly as I can, but also as coherently as I can. So here's a connection that I've made recently. Now, you guys may have wondered, what is this guy talking about? You know, talking about occult magic and Aryans all of a sudden and all that. Well, that is another piece of the puzzle, and it's all tied into um, what's going on with, or what has been going on with the hierarchy of this matrix, and the beings that are heavily promoted in the New Age. So now I'm not sure if I talked about this in the last video, but these Nordics, right, that were seen, remote viewed on the moon, and were even described as part of the Aryan race, let's say, that inhabited this Earth, and still has remnants of through all the people, possibly all the whole population, at least on the surface. Now, we've heard of these beings in the New Age community as the Palladians, right? They're said to be the only ones that look like us. And at first I'm like, okay, well, maybe these guys are just from the future, right? They're the future version of us coming back to talk to us. And while I still think that's largely true, I think those are actually also the Aryans, the Nordics. And upon realizing that a lot of these, or maybe all of these beings, are false light in this New Age, I started hearing more and more negative things about these so-called Palladians, that they have sold us out, or numerous times going back to Atlantis and all that. And that makes a lot of sense, being that the Aryans were very warlike people, and we still are as humans. But it'd be very interesting if the Palladians were actually these Nordic people, and for whatever purposes, because I'm sure they already have the technology to do so, but they're using humans on the moon to create craters. So that's a connection, right? And I believe these Palladians really have been facilitating the intergalactic human slave trade, along with the Galactic Federation and whatever other beings are manifesting on this realm, or higher realms, higher astral realms, because it is possible to take a person's consciousness and put it somewhere, right? Even though it's out of body, as we've seen with, if you watch the quantum healings of Tina and Karen and other subconscious regressions, where people remember spending large amounts of time, sometimes even 20 years, on, let's say, other planets. I hope you guys can still see me. Now, another realization was I had that was in regard to dragons. Okay, so if you remember, on this channel we discussed how these false light beings can actually be dragons, or evolved reptilians rather, or basically reptilians that are higher up in the hierarchy. And this was largely based on the work of another woman that I follow regarding her own subconscious regressions, in which essentially people start all imagining the same beings. Sometimes it's these reptilians, but most times it's these dragons, because they really are the only ones that have the higher spiritual powers to implant people with all sorts of higher technologies and create delusions in their head, and use them, sort of similar to the Archons, or more than likely they are related. There could be lesser forms of dragons. Use them for their own entertainment, right? Remember, if we had Anna on the show, she was describing how 3 Archons were laughing at her and were telling her, or treating her as a form of gross entertainment, in a sense, right? So now, I was listening to someone tell a story regarding dragons, and again tied to the Aryan race as well, and how these Aryans would actually swap this dragonic energy between them, this fire. Now remember, the Kundalini is also described as a fire, as 2 serpents or dragons because dragons can be described as feathered serpents, like we've seen in Quetzalcoatl. And they would swap this energy between them in their rituals to charge this warlike energy, right? To supplement the others, in a sense. So let's say there were 3 fighters. 2 fighters would give their energy to the 1 fighter, and that 1 fighter would go and destroy his opponent, let's say, in whatever battle he needed. Okay, so this dragonic energy is this very fierce, warlike, aggressive, powerful energy that they can use. Now there's a duality to this. We have the negative, destructive force, and we have the positive, more protective, defensive force. All really based on the same energy, like structure, same kundalini, let's say. Now, these negative dragons were actually seen more as demons, but throughout all of Europe, especially parts like Wales, what they described Wales as was dragons, not whales. Through Romania, through the Eastern Europe, through the Balkans, through Albania, there are many tales of dragons protecting cities and protecting the wealth and the people there, almost as if they were guarding their own kin. In Romania specifically, Vlad the Impaler had teamed up with Skanderbeg of Albania, and they were actually both of the house of Dracul. Dracul stemming from Draco, Draco being Drago, dragon, and there are many names that even assimilated to this word, specifically in Romanian, Dragos. In other Eastern European languages, Dragui or Dragul, right? So pertaining to this idea. And of course we have in Tibet and China the land of the dragons, right? The dragon families even, and if you follow the work of Paul Watts, I believe, he's a very good decoder of the Bible. He was even claiming that Yahweh was a dragon. Okay, now it would make sense, because if you take into account what I'm about to tell you. So remember how I said the dragons were these protective beings also that fought demons, right? People consider them good because, oh, they saved our people, they protected our people. Now, who else do people, especially in the New Age community, call upon for protection? Well, that would be the Archangels, specifically Archangel Michael. Michael, right? Archangel, Arch. Now, before we get into Michael, this was something that came to me as I was walking here. Arch. Rearrange the word arch. You get Char. If you guys have ever gotten into Pokemon, I got into a little bit, so I know. There are the dragons, the dragon Pokemon, and you'll know they're called Charmander, Charizard, or Charmander, Charizard. Charm. To charm someone, to use your fire, your passion onto them. You're charming them. You're using charms in a spell. Okay, so Archangel Michael. What kind of sword, what does Archangel Michael carry? A sword. What kind of sword? A flaming sword. Who else spits fire? Dragons. Okay. And the archangels are said to be good. So this is another argument to cement the theory that behind these archangels that we deem to be so positive, so loving and protective, there are likely these dragons. Now, why would they hide their identity behind these figures of light if they are essentially dragons? Something to think about, right? But again, remember, this whole plane is based in fire, right? The Kundalini is fire. Prometheus stole the flame. The Eye of Sauron, Lord of the Rings, is a fiery eye that watches over everything. Plato's cave is run by a fire. That's how we get the twilight in, or the dimmed light in the cave that shows the shadows on the wall. And fire doesn't have a shadow because it is the shadow, essentially. It is the one manifesting the shadows. So could these archangels be dragons? Now, again, based on this woman's work that I followed when I first started waking up to these ideas, these dragons would manifest as very friendly beings in people's subconscious, as cartoons, as figures of light, as the ascended masters, right? They got you to connect to all sorts of flames, to their energy, because through this flame, it was like a hook that which they then start usurping that bliss that they're creating in you. They were usurping that from you, that delusion. They were using that veil to run your life into a mess, essentially, right? Because under the guise of protection, you were dependent on them, right? So any being that says, oh, that's not really telling you the full truth, that's not promoting awareness inside of you of who you are and of the ability to save yourself and where you are, right? Because we don't need saving from others. We need to be aware of how to save yourselves, how to save ourselves, and that there is something that we need to be saved from, essentially, that we need to save ourselves from. But if Daddy Michael is always around to save you with his flaming sword from the scary demons, you're not going to be saving yourself anytime soon, because you're just going to be fully reliant on ascending into 5D, essentially, as that being your whole goal here, right? When really it's much greater. And of course, if the goal was much larger, they would bestow upon you some very small goal, some distraction, let's say, in comparison to the huge hierarchy that exists, right? The whole level, the whole system, because they don't want you to find out about the whole system, let's say. Now, and this is why I don't fully agree with everyone that I study, because it's very good to take perspectives from everyone. The lady whose work I keep mentioning, that saw these dragons, she's the only one I've heard really to see these dragons, and a couple others, but they saw them as good. She claims these dragons can only inhabit up to 5D. Once you surpass that 5D vibration, then essentially they don't exist and can't affect you anymore. But again, remember, the layers of this matrix go beyond 5D, in my opinion. And why would New Age be trying to get us into 5D if that's where it all stops? Fully knowing that these Ascended Masters and these Archons and these Dragons, these Archangels, are behind this New Age, right? It was started by, I believe, Blavatsky or someone, one of these Zionists or whatever, cultists that was behind the movement New Age. Now, New Age is not so New Age because the practices stem from these Aryans, from these occult practices back to Egypt, back to Greece, back to Atlantis, right? That's where these practices are coming from. And again, remember, it's these demons or bad dragons or reptilians or whatever versus these good dragons, these archangels here in the duality, right? And they want you to pick a side. They want you to either be a demon or an angel. But the path is narrow, according to Jesus at least. And there's also connection here to Sirius, right? We have the Sirius or Syrian heliacal rising coming soon, which floods the Nile around the beginning of August every year. This was seen as a highly beneficial time. That's essentially when spring started for them, right? And Sirius, Syria, Assyrian, Assyr, Ashura, there's something to that as well. The Assyrians believed their god Ashur, which was probably Sirius, was the father of all the gods. Now, Sirius in the New Age is considered a very spiritual sun, our spiritual sun, the binary star to our sun, even. How true is that? I don't know. In Gematria, Sirius is very closely related to Sophia, but there's a missing link there. I don't think so, because when the New Age starts claiming that Jesus and all the archangels are from Sirius, Sirius referred to as the dog star. Now, Hebrew is read from right to left, so dog would actually be God if we looked at it from a Hebrew perspective, right? They always do things in reverse, and that's why they call the God God, because it's the reverse of dog, which would be Sirius, maybe, right? And we have the Truman Show Sirius satellite falling from the sky, so there's a lot of connection there to Sirius somehow. But if all these archangels are from Sirius, from Siri, us, Iris, us, Siri, we have on the iPhones, the I, Siri, Iris, could that be the location of the highest level of the Matrix? I don't know. Would it even be a physical location, or more like an astral realm location? I don't know. There is a connection there, which I will be digging more into for my own truth and for you guys watching. Okay, so let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know how you feel about these dragons, if you have any stories related to such beings. And leave a comment, leave a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.